Welcome to the Historical Romance Sampler. Today, I am joined by Logan Sage Adams. Logan Sage writes historical male-male romance with plenty of sweetness, a little heartache, occasional humor, and hard-earned happily ever afters. Her work explores themes like healing from loss, finding the courage to fall in love, learning to love oneself, and overcoming trauma. They especially enjoy writing love stories between everyday people and typically set their stories in the 20th century, mostly in the United States, which you know I'm going to ask about later. When she's not writing or reading, Logan Sage enjoys cooking, chatting with friends, and spending time with her supportive family. Logan Sage, thank you so much for joining.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I'm really excited to hear you read today. You're reading From the Ashes,
hmm
and my understanding is this is set in Chicago.
Yes. Yes, it
Tell us
is.
about it.
Yeah, sure. It is set in the Gilded Age in Chicago. So it is 1893. It starts right before and then goes through the World's Fair that took place there in Chicago. And it is a romance between a high society man who is the son of a very prominent family and a man who works in one of the print shops that he purchases.
Very exciting. I know so many people who are obsessed with that Chicago World's Fair because of the book Devil in the White City.
Yeah.
So it's really nice to have a story that might be a little more uplifting than about a serial killer.
Yes.
I hope.
It is. It is. It has, I think that, I wanted my work to serve as a partial criticism of the World's Fair and the Gilded Age as a whole, but have kind of an uplifting tone to it overall, of course, because it's a romance, but just in general with the progress that we continue to make as a society. And I feel like right now it's hard to find that positivity. So hopefully it'll be helpful for some.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So, is there anything we need to know about the scene before you jump into the reading?
So I'll read from the first scene just because it's one of my favorites. It introduces one of the main characters, Arthur, who is the one who's an industrialist and a son of a very wealthy family. That's pretty much all you need to know. So I'll dive in and hope I can get through it okay. Flames flickered in the nearby fireplace, while Arthur Hughes sat on the yellow and brown striped sofa, one foot resting atop its opposite knee, his thumb tap, tap, tapping his thigh. Musical notes filled the room. Arthur flinched at each of the occasional mistakes in the familiar sonata. Damn it. How many more times would Emma have to play this piece before he could even pretend that her performance had been satisfactory? He let his eyes wander to the mantel clock. Noon. Arthur was scheduled to meet with Harry Putnam in less than 1 hour's time. He couldn't keep listening to Emma's half-hearted, unpracticed performances for much longer. Returning his focus to the piano, Arthur caught the eye of Emma's tutor, Charlotte, and forced a tight-lipped smile. Charlotte simply crooked an eyebrow in response. Arthur had to then purse his lips to contain a very real smile that was threatening to burst forth. Charlotte placed a hand on Emma's shoulder, signaling her to stop playing. I think your father is running short on time, she said. We'll practice more later. Emma heaved a sigh. Arthur could practically hear her eyes rolling. Fighting back the urge to reprimand her, Arthur uncrossed his legs and stood. Your playing is better, he said simply, straightening his jacket. Definitely better. Still terrible, but better. Emma swung her legs over the bench, her fast movement so inelegant it had to have been purposeful. Arthur held back from commenting. Again. I have no ear for music, Emma said, with the overinflated sense of self that most other 16-year-olds possessed, but typically kept better contained. I keep telling you, Arthur replied. I know piano isn't your favorite. No, it's not, Emma clipped. Emma, Arthur said, leveling a look. Your mother loved to play the piano. And I know for certain that she would have liked for you to learn. Can't you at least try to share this with her? It's not like she's here, Emma said bluntly. Arthur fought back a wince. Even though her callousness pained him, he tried to tell himself that his wife was more of a folk tale or a specter to Emma than a mother figure, as hard as that was to believe. It took Arthur an extra moment to collect himself enough to respond. No, she's not, he finally said. But I like to think that she, before Arthur could finish his sentence, Emma hopped to her feet. Rather than try to stop her, Arthur watched her skulk off. Charlotte came up beside him and touched his forearm. I'll talk to her, she said. Don't bother, Arthur said wearily. I had a temper myself when I was her age. It'll pass, eventually. I'm sure you were more respectful to your parents. Only to their faces. Did you forget the reason why Ella and I had to marry so young, and in such haste? Charlotte had been friends with Ella. It was how Arthur had met her. He had even liked Charlotte for a little while, before that ball where Ella had really caught his eye. Thinking back on his exploits, Arthur ran a hand over the lower half of his face. I was a master manipulator, Arthur said, deceitful. I was so cavalier, too, eager to be the opposite of whom my parents wanted me to be. But I realized, eventually, that I needed to change. His face fell as the weight of that statement settled into his brain. Now I'm exactly like my father, only I'm more miserable. You're nothing like him, Charlotte said. Trust me. How am I not? I live for my work, if you can even call my pitiful investments that. I have no real friends either. Charlotte reeled back, prompting Arthur to correct himself. All right, I have one real friend, but I pay her to be my friend, so I'm not sure if it counts. It counts. I'm not your friend because I work for you. Frankly, I could probably be better paid elsewhere. Arthur huffed a barely there laugh. I pay my staff poorly. Add that to the list. You pay me well. I was only trying to be funny. Can't recognize humor. Another similarity. Now Charlotte was laughing. Stop. Loves to hear himself talk. All right, now you're spouting complete nonsense. Arthur opened his mouth to say something in protest, but Charlotte's threatening look stopped him, and he held up his hands in mock surrender. He continued, you are nothing like your father, other than the fact that your offspring could stand to be better behaved. Arthur sighed. I know she could be, but honestly, I'd rather her be rude to my face than try to sneak off behind my back. I'll take honest eye rolls over false smiles every time. I still want to talk to her. I want to make her see how lucky she is. Now you're starting to sound like my father. I'm not referring to your family's money, but the fact that you care for her. Oh, yes. And I know what she'll say. She'll say that I'm too busy. She'll tell you that if I really cared, I'd spend more time here at home. I'd spend more time with her. And the worst part is she'll be right. Arthur paused to remove his spectacles, pince-nez style frames that pinched the bridge of his nose, and rubbed his eyes before putting them back on. I'm busy because when I'm not busy, I can't stop thinking about how miserable I am. And I'm only busying myself by either participating in events that I'm expected to participate in or tending to my investments and businesses. I know I should set more time aside to be with her. Charlotte's expression softened, her eyebrows lifting, her brown eyes shining with unbridled kindness. She's still lucky. She's lucky that you never fault her for her honesty, whether over her opinions or her emotions. And I want her to see that. Best of luck to you, then, Arthur said, a teasing edge to his voice. He took out his pocket watch to check the time. I need to head over to Putnam Press. Soon to be, well, not Hughes Press, because that's taken, but something else, maybe. Good luck to you, too, then. None needed. I made an outlandish offer for his business last week, and Mr. Putnam said that he would be happy to sell. He'll have the papers ready today. So, I better not be late. He bowed his head slightly and started toward the hall before stopping to turn back around. I should be back by 6, maybe 7. If you could tell Gertrude, that would be helpful. I'd rather not have her prepare dinner early, only to have the food grow cold. Charlotte hooked her hands behind her back and nodded. I'll tell her. Arthur threw her a wink and left.
What a interesting setup that's so centered in fatherhood and this feeling of not being enough. Like, I just want to find out more about Arthur.
Oh, yay. I love that. Yeah, I adore his character so much. And you really hit the nail on the head of he never feels like he's enough for his family because of just who he is and the mistakes he's made. And he wants to be a good father to Emma. He wants to give her this amazing life, but he's so miserable. And
Mm,
it's kind of a push-pull thing within himself for a lot of the book.
Well, I look forward to talking more about that. First, we're going to take a quick break for our sponsors. Do you have a favorite bookstore? Mine is Q and Willow. I was one of their original Kickstarter backers, and I am always thrilled to have an excuse to go to Kew Gardens here in Queens to see what is new. Since I don't get there as much as I wish I did, I also love to use bookshop.org to support them. Bookshop.org is an online bookstore of print and ebooks. The magical thing is that when you check out, you get to choose a bookstore from their partners, and a portion of your purchase goes straight into that bookstore's wallet. When I need to order a research book, you can bet I'm putting it towards the Q and Willow account. The Historical Romance Sampler is a proud affiliate of bookshop.org, which means if you make a purchase there after following the link in my link tree, the podcast also gets a slice of that money, which helps me do things like pay for my editing software. Check out my link tree for official shopping lists of books featured on each season of the show, and go book shopping to support your favorite indie bookstore and maybe your favorite indie historical romance podcast. Do you love to read with your ears? I've got you covered. The Historical Romance Sampler is an official affiliate of Libro.fm, the audiobook store where every dollar you spend helps support indie bookstores. They've got a great selection of romance audiobooks that you can purchase or listen to with credits as part of a monthly subscription. Even better, I've created custom playlists featuring the Libro.fm titles that you heard here first on the Historical Romance Sampler. Head on over via the link in my bio to shop the playlists. And if you're signing up for the first time, use code HISTORICAL for an extra book credit. I am back with Logan Sage Adams, who just read from the book From the Ashes. And remind me, is this a new release? It's just recently come out?
Yeah, it came out January 22nd.
Awesome. So it's now available. You can go read it to find out what happens with Arthur and the soon to be discovered Jesse. I want to start with how you were setting it up. You said you want this to be a critique of the World's Fair. Can you tell us more about where you got the idea to set it in the World's Fair and what drew you to the World's Fair?
When you mentioned the book earlier, Devil in the White City, I read that a long, long time ago and I really enjoyed it, but obviously the tone was bleak for some of it. And it was very informative. I really enjoyed it. I just have always loved love stories. And so even back way before I thought of becoming a romance author, I thought like how great would it be to read a love story set during the World's Fair. So I don't know, at some point the idea just popped into my head that that would be really cool setting. I didn't set out initially when I was like researching for it to be a critique. Everything I had heard about the fair, other than the serial killer, it was like very interesting. And I had forgotten a lot of the even criticism that Eric Larson included in his book. And obviously, there was stuff he didn't include. And as far as like how people were treated while it was being created, BIPOC people being left out of like the planning and important being able to showcase their important achievements. There was so much that I realized that my book couldn't just be a celebration of what it was. And also the more I learned about the fair and why they had it in Chicago, why Chicago wanted to have it after the Great Chicago Fire in the 1870s, I I realized that I wanted to bring those together and have my book be a criticism of both the World's Fair and the Gilded Age and an exploration of that through the characters, through their relationships with each other and their families and society.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because the World's Fair seems like this like really outlandish, fun idea of all these countries coming together to exhibit the
Yeah.
things that they have developed over the last, I don't know, 10, 20 years, whatever it was supposed to be. But I do remember reading about it, probably in The Devil in the White City, about how people were really mistreated as laborers, mistreated as being like put on display. Like they built villages, I think, of like they were really exoticizing countries that were currently being exploited by the
Yeah.
colonial empirical powers. Tell me more about your research process. Do you start with the research and then come up with the story idea? How much do you dig into the research before writing or during writing? Do you let the research just be on the side while you're doing the fun writing? How does that work for you?
I do a little bit up front just because I want to know kind of some basics to get the vibes of what I want to go for when I'm writing the book. But the bulk of my research is like on the way, which then obviously I might have to go back and fix something when you stumble across something that doesn't work for whatever reason. But I can't hold that much in my head, I don't think, to research it all ahead of time. And I also discover a little bit as I write. So I have a rough idea of what I want the story to be, but I'm not someone who plots everything out. So that would be difficult to research beforehand because I wouldn't even know necessarily what I want to research until I get there. And then you realize, oh, what can I have them do at the fair now that they're finally there? And where are they in their relationship so far? What pieces of the fair should I use that could be like symbolic of something that they're going through or whatever. And so that kind of drives where I go with the research.
Yeah. And something from the scene that you read, Arthur is so interested in being a good father. And I was wondering how much you explore or thought about this as you were writing. The idea that we have an idea in our generation of what is a good father. And in the 1890s, they probably had a very different idea of what is a good father. How did you like balance that as you were writing this character?
Yeah, a lot of Arthur's arc is kind of what he feels a lot of pressure on what his parents wanted for him and what he was meant to be. And he doesn't fully recognize for a while that he's putting that pressure on Emma because he's internalized that as almost as being a good parent, though he's never had that conscious thought. And he doesn't even necessarily consider his parents good parents, but he wants their love and approval. And their love and approval hinges on him being a certain way, and being a certain way includes being a certain kind of father.
Mm,
So I think that it's even more about like he can see that she's unhappy. He's always felt unhappy, but he's still telling himself, as you kind of see in the scene, that like it's a season. But he's not even recognizing that he's still miserable. It never
mm-hmm.
passed for him.
Yeah.
He sees that Emma's miserable, but somehow it's not clicking why. And he doesn't
Mm-hmm.
even recognize that it's a mirror for himself too, and how he's always felt.
Mm. Well, I'm trusting that by the end they both get a little less miserable.
Yes, it's such a big part of the story is fatherhood. And, I really enjoyed writing that. I don't always write children in my books. It's just when the story calls for it, and I couldn't resist it for some reason. I don't know why.
Well, and so speaking of that, you have written several different novels and they're in different eras. And like you said in your bio, they tend to be the 20th century, tend to be the USA. Do you have a sense of how you approach, do you choose an era? Are you called to an era? How do you end up writing a story in 1893 versus like a different era?
I will say that when I wrote that version of my bio, I realized I had to update it. And I updated it maybe like a week ago because I realized, oh, I guess I'm not only doing the 20th century. Now, at first I was just those were, like you mentioned, being called to write a certain thing. There were just pieces of American history that I found very interesting and that I then wanted to write about. But now I've written a couple of books in the 1800s as well. I have this one. I'll have another one that'll come out later in the year. Like, I don't know what happened. I think I like hopping around. I like exploring different things. Right now, I do really love this period from like the mid 1800s till through like the 1920s is just my favorite. I don't know why, but I've written outside of it. I wrote the 1930s and the 80s. So I don't know.
Well, the late 19th century in the US was a very tumultuous time with big changes in all spheres of life. So that can certainly be an exciting time to plunge in as a historian.
Yeah.
Would you say that you get your story ideas like, do they come to you through character, through plot, through setting? What hooks you the most?
I think setting first and then character. The way that seem to do it, and I don't know why, is picking either like a setting or an event that I want to set something around. And then I find my characters, and the way I find them is really silly. I look at old photographs, like really old photographs that I find online, and I just find them. I just find, oh, there's this person. I think he's going to be in this. He looks like he belongs in this era or in this, I don't know. And then another, the same thing. And then I kind of work from there to figure out who they are and figure out what the setting is, what the, I don't want to say like the themes, but like the cultural milieu, I don't know if I'm saying that right, of the time period. And that kind of informs them what the story should be. The Gilded Age had so much tension between the different classes. So that's what drove this story versus like the 1930s in America with the Great Depression, and that's a completely different, striving to survive kind of thing. So that I feel like the setting kind of helped me figure out where to go.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And looking at photographs, your covers are so beautiful, and they're each a beautiful illustration of the main couple, and they're very specific. Like they look like they could be from photographs. There's one that looks very specifically like a photograph. It's clearly not a photograph, but
Yeah.
that's obviously the aesthetic. I guess I'm mostly just stating a compliment, which is I love your book covers. And I guess do you use the photographs that you use as inspiration? Do you give those to your cover designer? Is that how you get to the covers?
Just for the faces of the people. But otherwise, I kind of just come up with a pose. This World's Fair, there's a famous photograph, so I'll just show what this cover looks like. And you can see that there's like the fair in the background. There is a photograph of, I think it's a couple, and they are on a balcony like this overlooking, but it's a farther away photograph, and there's something in it. I don't know if it's some piece of machinery that I don't know exactly what it is. It might be like a spotlight or something like that. And so I sent that to my cover artist and I asked her, can we like zoom in, make it, that the couple is the main thing, but I want to have the fair in the background and I want to have that scene. And since it was like, I think it was dubbed the mauve decade. I'm sorry, I'm really bad with pronunciation sometimes. You can tell that I like learned words from reading them, not from hearing them, because I never know how to pronounce anything. So, but that's why I asked that there be like purples. So I had like the spine and I just wanted to capture like that there was some purple to
Yeah.
decade. I don't know.
I love that. I love that. Well, it's a good time to move to Catherine's quick questions. If you had to use one of these words to describe your writing sensibilities, would you describe yourself as a realist, a comedian, or a fantasist?
I would say a realist with a little asterisk and say that I'm an idealist because I try to put as much realism as I can into my books. I heard the term once, rivet counter, which I liked for myself because I will look up minutia and I'm getting better at that, meaning I'm getting like more obsessive about it with every book, which is fine. But then I always want there to be just a lot of queer joy in my stories. And so that's where I say I'm an idealist because I know that not even maybe most queer people in history, especially in these time periods that I've written about, had their happily ever afters, but they obviously deserved to. And so I just want that for them in the book. So that's why I think it's like realist with a little bit more.
Yeah. If you had to choose, would you add more real history to a story or more romance scenes?
Probably more real history. And I don't know. Sorry, readers. I really like it. I don't know. I'm just really nerdy and it's so fun for me. I love romance, but I don't know, the history.
If you were forced to do a genre blend story, what crossover genre would you choose?
I have thought about this and it is so hard. I don't know if I will say, can I pick two?
Sure.
All right. It would be either sci-fi, but it would be kind of like almost like a time travel sci-fi, so I can incorporate some historical stuff. I think that would be really fun to do. Or I would do like a noir kind of feel for a romance. So noir, but with a nice happily ever after. But I would love to try to write that gritty,
Yeah.
yes, and probably set it in like the 1920s or something.
I think about this relatively frequently, how much I love a noir sort of setup and feel like the PI who's like against the world. But I don't really love it because the rule is they can't actually be happy. If they get happy, something terrible is going to happen. And I think about that a lot. I'm like, I love it, but I hate it. So
Yeah.
please, I'm going to vote for you to give us a romance noir so that we can enjoy the setting without the terror of knowing that as soon as they get some happiness, they're going to lose it all.
Yeah, exactly. I like that too. So I have to work on it for sure. For sure.
All right, and the last question. What does escapism mean to you?
I think, I mean, just being able to be sucked into another world. And it's, even though it's our world, it's the past. And I think historical has some similarities with fantasy in that way that you're just transported to something completely unlike what you're used to. And that is what I think of as escapism, is just being able to fall into another world.
Lovely. Logan Sage, thank you so much for playing Catherine's quick questions and for coming on the podcast. Where can readers find From the Ashes and your other books? And also, where can they find you on the internet?
You can find all of my books on Amazon. They're also on Kindle Unlimited. If you prefer, you could also purchase a paperback directly from me. I have on Etsy, so you can just search Logan Sage Adams, and I sell signed paperbacks there. And for following me, you can subscribe to my newsletter at logansageadams.com, or you can follow me, logan.sage.adams, at an Instagram.
Awesome. And I'm going to put your website in the show notes so listeners can click right on through.
Thank
And
you.
From the Ashes is currently out, so everyone can go read it. That's all I have. Thank you so much, Logan Sage. I really have appreciated this.
Yes, thank you so much. This was great. It's so fun.
That's it for this week. Don't forget to subscribe to the Historical Romance Sampler wherever you listen, and follow us on Instagram and YouTube. Until next week, happy reading!